Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another backstage interview for the Metals Investor Forum. Thanks for joining us. With me today is Peter Akerley of Erdene Resource Development. Peter, thanks for taking another moment to chat. I guess I'm going to dive right in. We've always talked about Erdene as being this two-sided story, right? You're clearly pushing Bayan Khundii towards becoming a mine, and that's not far off now. And then there's the exploration side of things. So let's start with the mine side, because that's what you will grow from once it is there. And I think you put out your feasibility study. We know what this thing looks like, but timeline is probably the question that you're getting most right now. So why don't you talk us through what's changed in the last little while with timeline and what you see coming next?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gwen. COVID has not really created too much in terms of delay for us, other than the inability to hold public gatherings or public meetings in the local community. And one of the key components, I guess the linchpin in the detailed environmental impact assessment approval, is to hold that public consultation. And so we've been waiting for the air to clear to allow us to actually hold those meetings. And just now in the last few weeks, we've started to see, with progress on vaccinations and a lowering case rate in Mongolia, they've started to open things up. And so I'm expecting that sometime as we move towards late Q2, early Q3, we'll have those public gatherings, those public meetings, and that'll allow us to move on to the DEIA. So we expect to pass through a major critical path milestone as we move into the early part of Q3. And that there's a bit of a domino effect on that, where our construction permits are all ready to go as well. And they'll just fall in place as we move through the summer period to allow us to be able to hit the ground as we move into August, September.
Okay, right. So as with most things, COVID obviously got in the way a bit, but it hasn't been dramatic, but pushed things back on what had been a fairly aggressive timeline. But
yeah, that's right. I think, when you carry that a little bit further, it's a good thing we weren't in the heart of construction, because it would have a major impact in terms of cost overruns.
Fair enough. Yeah.
As we push into the latter part of summer, as long as we can hit the timelines I just mentioned, we can move through pretty much according to schedule and be looking for completion in late 2022. If there is a push into some winter construction, then it could drag us into early 2023, but there's still some pieces to fall into place before we can actually put a pin in that.
Okay. Now we're talking about building a mine, 66,000 ounces a year. Is that the number?
Yeah, it's 65,000 ounces a year.
5,000. So, not a small operation, but you're also building with room to expand. And there's, we've chatted many times about where the material might come from to fill such an expansion. So let's go through that. This is the exploration side of the story. The exploration side of the story right now isn't so much seeking splashy new discoveries, but taking advantage of areas that have gold, have minerals on them, and might fill that expansion opportunity.
We truly have a wealth of opportunities in front of us, and all of them have room for expansion, and some of it I consider to be low-hanging fruit. The first thing is right at the mine itself, where a combination of the drilling that we've done and the higher gold price allows us to expand the resource at Bayan Khundii, and we're working through that with a revised resource estimate with Tetra Tech. The really exciting news of the last few months has been Dark Horse. We've pulled 2 holes out of that in Q1 that are 30 to 40 meters of 3 to 6 gram material within 10 meters of surface, and it's oxide. So, that's already starting to paint a picture of easily accessible material for the mill, which will begin to drill off towards a resource as we move into the next phase of drilling. But there's a whole host of opportunities at depth along strike at Dark Horse, Alton Arrow that we'll continue to follow up on. So Dark Horse, I would consider priority 1. And then an area that we're really excited about as well, and we've been waiting to get in and drill, is Ulaan. And Ulaan, the highest priority target on Ulaan, sits directly adjacent to the Bayan Khundii deposit to the west. We have reason to believe that the mineralization trend continues in that direction, and we'll be drilling that for the first time, likely in late June, early July. We'll get a few holes into that, and then we'll see, what we get. We'll determine what we follow up with. And then, of course, Alton Nar sitting to the north. Tremendous scale-up opportunity, but also, again, some low-hanging fruit. We already have 500,000 ounces, of which we believe about 200,000 is amenable to the CIP plant. And I believe we can add to that with some follow-up on drilling we did last year. We had some high grade near surface. So some very significant resource additions to the CIP operation at Bayan-Khundii that we can tackle. But all of that will also deliver to us the plan for further significant drill programs for larger expansions in the future. So really excited about what we have planned coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of a fun balance on the exploration side, because Dark Horse is still a brand new discovery, but it's one where you've hit into some great grades and sort of see see what happens there. And then Ulan, like you say, I mean, you and I, ever since I was down in Mongolia too many years ago, you've always been interested in that western side, but there's been various reasons why you haven't gone there. So that is an area where you're pretty confident there's going to be gold that you haven't actually drilled before. So that could represent a new discovery, but yet one that's literally right beside the mine that you're building.
Yeah, and part of that situation was we hadn't acquired the 100% interest. That was just finalized late last year. So we went from 51 to 100%, partially on the basis that we wanted to get in there and do this drilling. And it made sense to wrap that up before we did any significant drilling.
Yeah, for sure. Well, fantastic. Let's just wrap it up there. I think this is, someone had just asked me to answer some other questions. I answered some of the other questions that came in for the Q&A previously. And one of them was, what's your next sort of golden runway pick? And I was naming a few companies, and Erdene is definitely there. I mean, Erdene, you're going to start building a mine very soon. And then you have this exploration splash layered onto the top.
It's exciting times. Yeah, I couldn't imagine having the table set better than we've placed it. So exciting.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time, Peter. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Gwen.